Produced by Victoire. Masters of Wrestling gives a special thanks to the EWF and Mr. Jesse Hernandez. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Power and Glory, the podcast. You want to discover the truth? Then you have come to the right place. I am one of your co-stars, the Master, Amir, along with my co-star. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former WWE superstar. He is a cheesemaker extraordinaire. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mario Mancini.
How you doing, Amir? How's everybody doing? How's it going?
It's going very well, but inconspicuous by his absence this week, unfortunately, our third partner in crime. Sadly, Mario, this week it is you and I. Paul is not with us this week, very, very sadly, as we will find out. I'm sure we'll find out the reasons why as we progress this week. But before we begin, everybody, I want to remind you to powerplex that subscribe button. That is very important. Also, hit the likes and share with your friends and family. The Power and Glory of the Podcast t-shirts are now available. They are $45, including shipping and handling in the United States. If you're interested in those, use the email address in the description of this video. Give us your size, your contact information, details, and we'll ship one of those out to you. We also want to remind everybody that public speaking engagements, they are also available for the entire team here at Masters of Wrestling. That includes Mario Mancini, Paul Roma, Rico Constantino, McCallion, and myself, the Master Amir. We are available for public speaking engagements. If you're interested, use the email address in the description of the video. Now I can take a deep breath, and as everybody can see, we have an extensive cast joining us today. An extensive cast, and some of these gentlemen, iconic superstars in the world of UFC. All right. So, but first of all, let's make the introduction. Jake, Jake, you know what? I'm going to let you introduce everybody since you are the man who got all this together for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me hand it over to Jake right now. Jake, welcome to Power and Glory.
Hey, thank you so much, Amir. And I'm really, really just excited to be here because we've got a really incredible thing and everybody's super proud of it. Of course, you know, my name is Jake Shannon. People might know me from my scientific wrestling endeavor, scientificwrestling.com. But more importantly, and what brought us all here today is Shoot Pro Wrestling. Now, maybe you guys can later on educate the marks on what a shoot is, but we've got two of the best to ever have done it. We've got our chairman, the legend, Frank Shamrock. He is the chairman of Shoot Pro Wrestling. And we've also got El Presidente, the Croatian sensation, Pat Miletich, with us as well. Both very, very well-known and well-respected in the MMA community. Also in the nascent catch wrestling community, which is what professional wrestling was when it was a sport and not a presentation. And then we've got our very own head of business development, Matt, the King of Connecticut, on with us as well.
Wait a minute, Jake. Did you say King of Connecticut? Oh, my goodness. Mario, did you hear that? King of Connecticut, eh?
I did hear that.
I'll tell you guys, I've been out of Connecticut over 20 years, so I pass the baton on to Paul and to Mario.
I'm sure it's well received there, Matt. But like I said, it's just a pleasure to have you all on here today. And I want to get into some history for those who may not know out there, some of our viewers here, because this is different from what our audience is used to with pro wrestling. So, Jake, again, I'm going to let you begin with this whole thing. So tell us a little bit. Champions. They're not born in the gym. It starts from the inside and it works its way out. Do you feel it more difficult to obtain muscle? Are you tired or perhaps depressed? Then there's a solution. Our brand new partner and sponsor, Care Aesthetics of La Quinta, are here to help you get restored to optimal health. Just use the contact information in this video and schedule your free consultation. Be sure to mention the name of the podcast, whether that be Power and Glory, Styling, Masterclass, or Hey Roma, when doing so. We wish you all the best in your road to optimized health. And now, back to the show. Let you begin with this whole thing. So tell us a little bit the basis of what Shoot Pro Wrestling actually is. If you were to describe it in a synopsis, what is Shoot Pro Wrestling?
Well, I would really like to paint the picture in people's mind by asking the question, what if professional wrestling was a real sport? I have nothing but respect for what you guys do, the challenges, that the damage you guys do to your bodies, the insane schedule, all of that kind of stuff. But if we harken back to the past, and that's why these two gentlemen that have such incredible accolades professionally and athletically are with us today, is we're asking, what if the rules of professional wrestling, we all know what that is, pin or submit to win. That's actually the old catch as catch can wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we bring it in with what Hulk Hogan's doing and Bischoff and all those guys, they're doing this real American freestyle. Well, guess what? Freestyle wrestling, the name that it originally started was amateur catch as catch can.
Yeah.
The professional catch as catch can had the pinning, but also the submissions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where these two gentlemen come in. Obviously, Frank held records, world records for like the fastest submission. I trained personally with Frank. And then obviously UFC Hall of Famer, welterweight champion, Pat Miletich, coach of 11 world MMA champions. We really want people to understand we're taking this serious right now. Endeavor, TKO, the owner of WWE and UFC, we sit right in between that. We have the Shoot Pro brand has preluded that merger and preluded even the Real American Freestyle. And we've been putting on these shows. And the shows are great, man. We do shoot tag teams. We do shoot cage matches, shoot Iron Man matches. It's wild to watch.
Yeah. No, it sounds incredible. But you brought up Hulk Hogan and Bischoff there because that was this big news that happened a couple of weeks ago where they were coming out with this new innovative company and these new ideas, which I watched an interview. I don't know if you guys saw it, where Hogan keeps referencing The Voice as a source of inspiration for how to, and telling backstories about guys and stuff like that, which is very rudimentary. I mean, it doesn't take much to figure that out. But so are they basing their company off of Shoot Pro Wrestling? Is that what we're thinking here, Jake?
I mean, dude, listen, I don't need heat with those guys. I'd rather work with them.
Yeah.
But the fact is we planted the flag about 3 years ago, and I've been vocal about this. We've been doing these kind of competitions since 2007. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the idea has not, I got 200,000 people on my Instagram. So it's not like, that we've been quiet about this. So it's certainly been out and well known. If you go to the Scientific Wrestling Instagram page, look at the caliber of people that follow and the people I've been broadcasting this message. What did they take the idea? I will say this. Mm-hmm. There's always room for people at the table, right? Yeah, I'm happy that it's getting the attention, right?
Yeah.
And it is slightly different. Freestyle. And Frank or Pat or Matt can speak to freestyle. It's different than catch because there's no submissions. Mm-hmm. That's just what you see in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna throw a little conspiracy theory out there right now.
Okay.
I know Pat. I was a guest on his old show, The Conspiracy Farm. I'll throw a little conspiracy theory. I was with the Big Brother, the Hulkster, a couple months ago, and discussing our mutual friend, Joe Briscoe, who is also part of Shoot Pro Wrestling. And I showed him the website. And he said, that looks pretty cool, brother. So I'll just throw that out there as a possible conspiracy theory. But to Jake's point, freestyle wrestling is great. I competed in freestyle in the 90s, but the rule set of freestyle has changed a lot over the years. Mm-hmm. And freestyle wrestling today is more of a game of points. Mm-hmm. There's very little to no mat wrestling, and guys are kind of trying not to lose. I invite people to watch freestyle from the last Olympics. Mm-hmm. It's a battle of takedowns. And what makes Shoot Pro Wrestling so exciting and so explosive is our rule set.
Mhm.
Pins and submissions, no points, 3 5-minute rounds. And I have had the pleasure of we've called over a dozen matches already with the living legend, Larry Zbyszko, Jake and I. And I called the match with Jake from the cage match from the MMA show, the Define the Fight in North Dakota. We've had matches in the ring, and our matches are so exciting. And I put them up against anybody's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And nothing against Real American Freestyle. I think it's great that there's
Mhm.
going to be an avenue. I mean, wrestling was my sport. It's great that there's an avenue for folks to compete and make money in wrestling.
Yeah.
But there's no comparison when you get on the mat between the action of what Real American Freestyle is going to be and what we're already doing with Shoot Pro.
Okay. Before I get to Frank and Pat, because I want to talk about their historic careers. So we're going back to the difference between pro wrestling and shoot pro wrestling. Now, obviously, we know that pro wrestling, that what we're involved with, that's more of a show. It's a spectacle. It's a stage play. It's theater with aggression and violence, right? But it has the entertainment aspect. How much entertainment of aspect will be infused or is infused in shoot pro wrestling? Are there, some works in there and storylines and stuff like that? Explain that to the layperson.
So there are no the plan is to make this a real sport. I mean, it is a real sport. We've done 4 shows, every one of them 100% on the up and up. Now, does that not mean we can't learn from the business model of pro wrestling?
Mm-hmm.
Pro wrestling's fantastic at promoting and making money. The valuation of the WWE is vastly greater than the valuation of the UFC. So we can learn from it. It's also older, more established. It's ingrained in Americana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's certain advantages to leaning into the tropes of professional wrestling and bringing it back as an authentic sport.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
also love the angle that, as much as I love mixed martial arts and a huge fan, it's the same match over and over and over again. What I love about professional wrestling is it's, tag team, shoot, we'll do tags, we'll do a triple threat, we'll do all these different variations. That's what we want to tap into, but we want to do it with real sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so, let me ask you something. Reality TV, some of it's scripted, sure, but not all of it.
Right.
Is there drama in reality TV? It's the same thing. Is there drama in an NFL season? That's what we're trying to bring.
Got it.
And I'll say this, the athletes that we have, they come from the MMA cage, from the amateur wrestling mat, and from the grappling stage, and they don't even know what a work is. These
Mm-hmm.
guys are all 100% shooters.
True.
And that's very important for people to understand. The only one pro wrestler that we had at our tournament in Vegas, this last tournament that produced 25 outstanding matches, was Bulletproof Blake Troop. He's also an MMA champion, and he knows that he was going there strictly to shoot. Yeah. And this is all shoots. It's in the name, Shoot Pro Wrestling.
Okay. And speaking of shoots, Mario, you see our 2 guests on the other side of the screen from you and I right now. I'm going to start with the first one right there, Frank Shamrock. Frank, you know what? Historic career, legendary name for all the competing that you've done. But I want to know, because this is the first time I've spoken with someone such as yourself. What is it in the mindset? So when you were growing up, were you a combative kid, or how does this career begin for you? What took you to that?
To fighting, yeah, I was not combative in any way. I was actually really soft, and I had a really tough childhood, so I was quiet. I didn't speak much,
Mm-hmm.
and but if you pushed me or threatened me, I would freak out and kick your ass or whatever. But that wasn't really what brought me into fighting. It's just that I had I left home when I was 12. I got in so much trouble, ended up in prison. By the time I got out, I had ruined my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then luckily the sport had come along,
Mm-hmm.
UFC, mixed martial arts. It all sort of happened with me in Pancrase, Japan. And I was able to go into something, well built, prepared, ready to perform, and something that was brand new. And that's why, I love where Jake's mind goes with all this, because Old is new, bro. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. Like this was
Yeah.
the old Carney show at the fair.
Yeah.
You would have a hooker, you'd have a shooter, you have a badass guy,
Yeah.
would smash the entire town and make a fortune
Yeah.
because they didn't understand how to use their bodies and the mechanics and the machine of submission wrestling, real combative grappling. And that's what we're trying to bring back. And so when I got into the sport, I was so young. I was 22. I mean, I was fresh out of prison. I had no idea what was going on. I never wrestled like Pat. Like I didn't know how to wrestle. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I studied Dan Severn's wrestling book. It was at like University of Iowa. Like I was so out of the loop.
Yeah.
I was reading material like a nerd to try to prepare for this thing.
Yeah.
But once I started performing and realizing what it is, I mean, it's this amazing human expression that you're doing with your body.
Yeah.
And whether you're doing pancrase or grappling or submission wrestling or shoot or professional wrestling, it doesn't matter. The physical performance side of it is so powerful. And then, and then for me, the development was, hey, now we're making money. Like, wow, now I can pay my bills and take care of my family and like do things.
Yeah.
And then, but I realized like, hey, the guys that are talking good are making all the money. The guys that have got a good story are making it. Like those guys, are making the money. And when you parallel that to what was going on in professional wrestling, they always knew, like, you got to tell very human, simple, we all connect to somebody's stories around this human performance, because then it's real.
Yeah.
Then it's, our minds go, oh my God, that's so real.
Yeah.
And whether it's real or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For Pat and I, like, we went down reality, like we, went down the hardcore. We're going to figure this out and try to figure out what it is, because nobody knew what it was. Pat, come on. Nobody knew about really, truly knew.
And
nobody knew. And I'd be like, wait a minute, I'm good at reading people. I don't think we all know yet, team. And it took a lot of us a long time working stuff out like this, trying new things, practicing, training with each other, building teams like Pat did. Like that's what it took, the community of people going, we better figure this out or we're going to get our asses kicked. Yeah. Or we better figure this out or we're not going to make money. We're not going to be successful. And I think the shoot idea, it's real, it's true, it's honest. It's what it used to be. And I just went to Hawaii, had this wonderful experience with this wonderful school, but the teaching, the wrestling, my best part was wrestling with the 12, 13-year-old girls who knew the system, who knew the flows, who could flow with me like we were in Mortal Kombat.
Right.
52-year-old man. I was going like, this is amazing that they've acquired all this knowledge. They know how to use their bodies. They want to use it. They want to experience it. They want to show what that is. They're safe, they're protected. Like that to me is what the whole, that's what wrestling is to me. Yeah. And the one thing I did learn from wrestling, I went to one wrestling camp. I got kicked out on the second day because I think we all went out and got drunk. But the one thing I did learn is it's a team. Like you all figure it out together. Yeah. And that's also where the stories come up. Like, hey, bro, what? Yeah. So I'm super excited about what we're doing. Having Pat, as El Jefe, Jake is our mastermind. Like I think the three of us have seen the evolution of what this could be, and we're at the forefront of what it's going to be.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you're onto something. So your demographic, the audience that you're going after it's definitely the ones that are watching the UFC. It's the ones that are watching the boxing. You're not per se going after the pro wrestling audience, or are you? Are you going to make an effort, Jake? Are you going to make an effort to bring
let's think about this, right? Okay, because we've been at this like you have to remember how pro wrestling is viewed in Japan.
Yeah.
Right? That's where Frank actually cut his teeth, was in like basic pancrase, which is basically came from pro wrestling. It was like a proto version of what we're doing today. I mean, Frank was doing this in the early 90s with a pro wrestling kind of inspired group, right?
Stories, outfits, the whole thing.
Yeah.
For real. We did it for real.
Think about this.
Yeah.
And when WWE, they need to get somebody over, they put Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar. They put Charlotte Flair against Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
There is a role for the shooter in the work, and there's room for the worker in the shoot. What WWE and sports entertainment does is focuses on the work.
Yeah.
We're bringing the shoot And what we're trying to do is really offer this halfway spot. What I originally envisioned is, imagine if something like WWE had a shoot division.
Yeah.
You could actually build up the shooters in a shoot division, get them the belt. It's adding to the variety show. And then what you do is you have the badasses then get the rub to the guys like Cena and all that in the Universal title hunt or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's never going to happen. If I sat around waiting for that to happen, man, I'd be dead.
Hey, didn't they try that years ago with the tournament?
The Brawl for All.
Yes, the Brawl.
Remember? Oh,
yes.
that was.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Thank the good Lord Paul is not here today, because Paul would chew that one. You remember that one, Mario? I see you.
I do.
Down there. Yeah.
You know, Amir.
Yeah.
You know, Amir, one thing that to expound on what Jake was saying, and this is a big education, I think, for fans, is to understand that MMA evolved out of professional wrestling. Shuto was around 9 years before the first UFC. I did a book with World Shuto champion, my dear friend Eric Paulson, and Jake's written many books on the history of professional wrestling. Pancras came out of UWFI.
Mm-hmm.
So the professional wrestling fans in America may not understand the roots. And even if you go further back, and Jake and I have talked about this on a number of other podcasts, look at the Gracie family. Who trained the Gracie family? I'll bet you don't know. The Gracie family was trained by Count Koma, Mitsuyu Maeda, who was a competitive catch wrestler. And who, the word that you use for the double wrist lock, what do they call it? The Kimura. Where did that name come from? Masahiko Kimura, Japanese professional wrestler, broke Elio Gracie's arm with that move when they competed. Wladek Zbyszko ragdolled Elio Gracie when they competed. So the roots of professional wrestling are very strong, and the history is very strong, and they're roots of the same tree, whether it be folk style wrestling, freestyle wrestling, MMA, professional wrestling. They're all roots of catch as catch can, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, that's for sure. And this is
wait a minute. Watch this segue. Watch this wonderful segue.
Yeah.
Frank brought up the carnies.
Yeah.
Well, you look at what is MMA today. MMA is striking and grappling. Well, for example, Pat, I think, what was it, your great uncle, Johnny Myler Miletich, was what was known as a combo man, which is a guy who could box and wrestle and would go take people's lunch money at the carnivals.
So it's so I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's coming across. Frank, I wanted to come back to you quickly about some stuff there, because you seem like such a laid back, such a nice guy. You know, you've got such a nice personality. So what is it again? Because again, I'm playing like as if someone watching this knows nothing about fighting, right? So imagine they know nothing. They see you, you're a nice guy. What is it that you found that was able to help you switch? Because obviously you're in a fight. I mean, this is real. This is not like WWE. You can seriously get hurt here. So what did you use to change that personality? Was it a lot of practice? Were you able to get into it fast, or did it take a long time for you to get into that mental zone? Like, okay, now I got to switch this guy off, and now I've got to fight for my life, sort of thing. How did you develop that?
Yeah, it took a while. It was quite the journey. I lost my first MMA fight, and only because I'd been doing submission wrestling, pancration, like all these other styles that are like, we got a place of honor.
Yeah.
If I got your leg and I'm about to break it and I give you the look, you got a choice. You let you tap out or you let me break it. Yeah. But if you let me break it, you're not working for 9 months and your career may end. So it doesn't make sense. So when I moved into MMA, I didn't realize nobody cared. I came from a tough childhood. I came from a lot of trauma and abuse and stuff. So for me, like, hurting people was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out how to overcome this weird psychology that I had.
Yeah.
And I worked through it with science. I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
I wrote it all down. I figured it all out. I read Dan Severn's book. I read every book. I read about, everything you could ever imagine. So I could figure this out so I could lower my fear level. But it took me probably 2.5 years before I could actually remember what was happening in the fights. They would just go by in seconds.
Yeah.
10
That's
seconds and it would be 10 minutes. I'd be like, what did I do? And so
yeah,
it took years to overcome that anxiety and that fear and stuff. And part of the process, meditation, visualization, and then knowing the stuff. Like I'm a nerd. I know the stuff like nobody else in this world.
yeah,
And I got the facts, the receipts, the proof, because every day I absorbed, studied it, practiced it, got Pat, worked on him, like got Jake pulled on his arm
yeah.
because I didn't want to get hurt. Because I
Right.
didn't want, and most performers don't face that. Most performers don't need that stress. And then they can perform more.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the bridge is, right? Like I
Yeah.
didn't know how to perform. I knew how to fight, or almost after about 2.5 years,
Yeah.
I knew how to fight, but I
Yeah.
didn't know how to perform after that.
Yeah.
Pat, you became a sports broadcaster like me. Like that performance side is so important that you can then tell your story, their story, wind the stories together, and
Yeah.
then put your performance in the middle and be like, yep. And
Yep.
that's what pro wrestling does. That's what MMA tries to do. That's what Pancrase did in their Japanese version, and we're trying to do the new version of that, which
Yeah.
is let's be real.
Yeah.
Perform. Let's get
Yeah.
it on. Let's see your performance, and then let's see your performance because we want
Yeah.
to show it. Like that to me is the key.
Yeah.
That to me is where it's at. In fact, I became a sports broadcaster, changed my career, and I know same thing happened with you when you moved over to the next thing. Everyone went, "Whoa, this is like a new level of Pat." Like now his voice has a different gravitas, a
Yeah.
different understanding of what Pat is. And then his story on top of the voice is like a thread through this whole thing. So
Yeah.
that's where we need to be at and shoot.
Yeah, absolutely. And now bringing us to Pat, Pat, did you follow the similar sort of a story arc as Frank? Were you a reserved kid? Were you a tough kid? Were you outgoing? How did you find your way into this field?
Well, I got literally beat up by everybody my entire life. So I spent my childhood actually with respiratory illness. I wrestled I wrestled from kindergarten through a year into college, 2 years into college technically, but I couldn't breathe. I was basically breathing through a straw full of mucus until I figured it out right before I turned pro in kickboxing by doing a lot of research and fixing my own problems. Um, but but no, I got beat up by everybody, and it was eighth grade. I got sick of it. I was in the shower after wrestling practice, and one of the kids took a wet towel and snapped me right in the sack and dropped me on the shower floor, and all the other wrestlers were laughing at me. And I said, "This is the last day ever that this happens." And so I talked to the principal of my middle school and said, "Can I go to the weight room during lunch? Bring a lunch sack, like literally like the Atlas Brothers ads in the back of the freaking comic books." And so I started throwing weights around and getting stronger, and I was highly motivated. I was
Yeah.
highly motivated, and so I was done with that, and so that was the end of that because I decided I projected a new life and a new existence, and that's kind of where I went with that. And so, but it was, I wasn't done competing when I left school. I went home to take care of my mom who was sick with heart problems, and literally happened by chance, destiny, whatever. One of the guys on my concrete crew, who was a black belt in karate, long before the UFC, many years before the UFC, still in the 80s, told me that a karate black belt could kick a wrestler's ass, and he was from Kentucky. He was from Kentucky, and he like this, and he goes, "Boy, I'll light you up. I'll light you up." And
Wow.
all right, let's go out in the field at lunchtime, and we'll find out. And I threw him around, and he gave me he's like, "Holy shit, I've never experienced that." So he gave me a free pass to go to his kickboxing karate gym, and that's where my journey started. And then obviously went into a lot of other arts and things like that. But that, I think subconsciously, to be honest with you, because I've done a lot of mindset work over the past 20 months, and I have one of my former fighters who's an amazing hypnotist has worked with me as well. What I was doing, because I was abused as a kid, was subconsciously I was building myself into a human being that could never be physically hurt by anyone ever again.
Right.
And so that's really what I was doing, was just creating a superhuman out of myself so that I could walk around in the public and go, just don't do it.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but there is so much psychology that goes into all of this. It's interesting that both Frank and you, Pat, now you're talking about delving into yourselves, researching, studying, and that. What came to mind was the bodybuilder Dorian Yates, because Dorian Yates would write everything down. He was meticulous. He was like a scientist with his body and his machine. But you talk about that mindset, Frank. You talked about that. It took you 2.5 years to get to that point where you could chisel out that precision focus in the fights and remember everything. Pat, it seems like you did that much earlier as a youth. You got that vision of where you wanted to go.
Sure.
Are you guys bestowing that upon some of the youngsters that are coming to you guys now? You teaching about the internal mechanism, the thinking processes and stuff?
Well, through my healing processes, there's been two major healing processes or sections of my life. One was at about 19 or 20, and then another one was starting about 20 months ago, where I had become I didn't realize it at the time. I'm pretty well versed in how the human body works. Nervous system stuff, I'm an expert in how to destroy it, but not how to heal it.
Mm.
And so I was suffering from anxiety and depression at that time for several years and self-medicating with alcohol. And
Mm.
my now business partner, Doc Will Spencer, after several neurologists and other people could not figure things out, he did one scan on me and he goes, "Bro, you're full of brain parasites. Like you're literally full."
Wow.
And that's what causes most of the time when you do research, anxiety, depression, bipolar, seizures, almost every mental issue that people run into, there are microscopic parasites attached to that. And
Mm.
most Americans obviously don't know. And as long as I've researched health, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
But he solved that literally in about 10 days
Uh-huh.
with a natural protocol to get them out of my nervous system and brain, and that changed everything. So for me, uh, understanding the layers that is the human being of the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, all these different things throughout the years that I've had to heal, I'm able to have those conversations with people, younger people, and help them understand kind of what they're dealing with, maybe
Mhm.
depending on their background, their childhood, what they're putting in their body, the toxins from the environment, and all these different things that cause issues, right? So
Yeah.
it's nice to be now from a perspective of understanding that I am, because yeah, we can build human monsters if we want.
Mhm. Yeah, we
There,
can for
there,
sure.
there's
We
one
we
thing that I'd
can.
like to bring up that I think is very relevant here. And Pat talked about it and Frank touched on it, and those people that have that know Pat's Frank's background as well. There's something interesting here, and it's about the role of trauma in excellence.
Hmm. Yeah, very true.
Trauma manifests itself in a couple ways, and actually some of them are awful. People end up with drug addictions or whatever, but a lot of times trauma can turn people into superhumans, like Pat was saying,
Yeah.
There's an old
because you have
saying.
this choice where you have to overcome something tremendously awful, and it's like, what are you going to do? Am I going to use it as a crutch, or am I going to use it as an asset? Is it a
Mhm.
is this trauma a liability or an asset?
Yeah.
Right?
There's an old saying: adversity introduces a man to himself, and anything that doesn't kill you only makes you stronger.
Very true. And in this line of work, we face it every day. In pro wrestling, it's the same thing as I'm listening to you guys. But what I'm really excited talking about, the workings of the body now and healing and getting your mindset, because that's so important. A lot of these young guys just think, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, get jacked." And that's it. That's not it. That's not gonna, you need the mental clarity, like you said, Pat, talking about getting rid of parasites. I heard something about that recently. In fact, yesterday we had a system installed in our home to get all the water filtered. So now we can drink from the tap and it's purified water. We wash in it. We got the whole system put in now. And they were
Good.
talking about parasites and other chemicals just in our water, just in our
Yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah. And so that's the thing that I spend a lot of time on now, developing programs, just because I was sick as a child,
Mhm.
which led to my research for the past 38 years of we heal soil. We teach people how to heal soil.
Mhm.
Soil and the human body are one and the same. Um, soil needs 90 essential nutrients and the proper biology, microorganisms, thousands of different types, many different types. And that's where our food used to have those microorganisms and real nutrients that were converted by those microorganisms into bioavailable nutrients. So that's how you create super soil, super plants, super animals, super humans. You get the synthetics and the heavy metals out of the body, out of the cells. You repair damaged DNA in plants, insects, animals, humans, honeybees, whatever. And you pull all the bad and pound in the super high concentrated good, and the symptoms of whatever it is people are suffering from tend to go away. So that's really the secret, because I mean, we grow food with synthetic chemicals, warfare chemicals, and antibiotics, and that causes side effects. And then you go to a guy in a white lab coat who writes a prescription for more synthetics, and it's just this vicious circle. So we just help people escape those systems. That's all.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Frank, are you involved with that as well, Pat? With Pat on that side of things?
No, but I do go to the beach every day and look at the ocean and walk in the sand.
That helps.
Yeah.
That helps.
I do watch the sunset every night because, guys, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we're all alive, number one. It's a miracle that we're doing, like literally, like it's a miracle. And what we're learning about microplastics, like all these pollute, like just everything. It's like, ew, let's get knowledge, let's make change. And I think everybody should be in charge of their own personal health.
Yeah.
Like it's your responsibility, bro. Like nobody knows, because nobody knows what you're doing. Nobody knows what you're eating, how you live. Like nobody knows except for you.
Yeah.
So you should be the forefront of all that. And that's a whole other conversation. But in that, when you're healthy, when you're strong, when you're vibrant, when you're chi, when you're spirit, when you're love, like you perform.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody goes, God, that looks amazing. Like, what's he doing? They want to hear your story. They want to feel that energy, because every human possesses the same thing, and that's what we see in glimpses in the matches, right? That's what we go, oh, it's the human spirit.
And speaking of the matches, Mario, I want to bring you in on this one as well. Obviously, because we know what we do in pro wrestling, but when you were speaking earlier, Frank, you mentioned about knowing how to move with the body, knowing how to work the body. Now, are there tricks of the trade to when you guys are competing in a real fight? Are there certain, like, obviously, because, for the layperson watching it, you're just thinking, man, if I got smacked in the face like that, I'd be dead, right? Or something like that. Or if that happened in the street, that guy he wouldn't be standing up anymore. Is there a certain way that it's done where you're still hitting, you're still making contact, but where you're not trying to kill somebody? I mean, is there a way that it's done? Both of you, Frank and Pat.
I don't know Pat's answer, but after I lost my first fight and realized I had a psychological issue from the trauma that I'd experienced, and it might take me some time to get through it, I just decided to kill everyone.
Okay.
with all the love in my heart, because we're all in the same agreement, and it's a sport, and I love you. But if we're going to pay, I'm going to kill you. I'll stomp on your neck, like I'll break your arm. I don't give it, because I lost my first fight. I lost $10,000. I lost all this respect, momentum. And I did it because I was like, oh, I don't want to hurt the guy.
Right.
How dumb is that? We're fighting. How dumb is that?
Right. Pat, what about you?
I mean, inflicting damage on other human beings takes a unique human being, right?
Yeah.
You have to come from a place where you've experienced it quite a bit. And so I never enjoyed hurting other human beings. I've never enjoyed that. That's why I do what I do now. I work on, we have solutions for the environment, for forever chemicals and heavy metals and pesticide residues, even radiation contamination. We can break that down in a matter of months. Okay. That's why I do that, because the karma, of inflicting damage on other human beings most of my life and teaching a shitload of other people how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a lot of time teaching the good guys how to do it as well, from law enforcement to military, things like that. But at some point I went, I've used massive amounts of research to build human beings that could stand on a gas pedal and crush other human beings for a living. Maybe I should use that knowledge to turn people's health around and turn the environment around. So that's what I enjoy. Yeah. That's why I love Shoot Pro, because to be honest with you, people are not getting their heads beat in.
Right.
There's amazing artistry going on. Look, MMA is art as well. Pro wrestling is amazing art. It's all art. But the Shoot Pro, because of the style, with the pins and the submissions, the way it used to be back in the day when my great uncle was competing and doing this stuff, that creates so much excitement when you see a great grappler, a great submission artist scramble to get off of his back to save his ass from a pin. That's when things get interesting, because a great jujitsu guy can't lay on his back and can't just lay there and play guard. He's got to survive. And that's where we create, because of that level of athleticism and excitement and technique and pace, that's where the monsters come in.
Yeah.
That's where the true scary human beings are going to survive.
Yeah. That's
and Amir, to that point, and I want to make sure I make this point. You and I were talking about this off air, Amir. I've spent the last week helping old clients from UFC get paid, because Endeavor settled on the brain trauma suit, and they're paying guys that competed from 2010 to 2017. And one of those guys, Frank fought on CBS, is in a Mexican prison right now. And another one of those guys, who was my broadcast partner at MMA in Fox, Carolina, one of my best friends, Stephan Bonner, is no longer with us. So I want to make clear that one of the reasons I was so excited about Shoot Pro, coming from the wrestling background and being friends with Jake, was because this prevents the CTE, the TBI. Fans love to watch guys hit each other. People love seeing people get knocked out. But human beings are not video game characters.
No.
And there are consequences for that over time, and we're seeing it now.
Yeah. Mario, I'm going to kick this over to you now. I want you to have a little bit of the spotlight, or rather half of the spotlight, rather, Mario. So,
Right.
Mario, you've been listening to this. Have you got any questions for anybody? Any observations? Any statements?
No, yeah, I mean, I just keep looking up on the top of my laptop and going, Frank Shamrock, holy shit. You have to understand, you know, and usually being around Andre, and I broke into the business 8 months before WrestleMania 1. So I met Ali, and you have to remember something though. You're talking, I'm the Genesis. Tank Abbott. You weren't able to hit the remote control and order it. You had to call the cable company in order to over the phone. You couldn't hit the button. I had to order it over the phone. The Royce Gracie. I was there when these guys had bare knuckles. And they were going, I don't with bare knuckles. There were no gloves, no nothing. I was there since day one. And I watched all of Frank's fights.
Yeah.
And Amir, I'm saying this for your benefit, because I know the work and the accomplishments of Frank Shamrock, and I would watch him, and I would look at who he's fighting, and I'd look at Frank, and Frank would look like he was ready to eat the heart out of like a grizzly bear. I'm like, he's nuts, man. He's gonna, and he's over here right now going, I'm just a nerd. I'm like, that's not what I saw. I'm like, so, let me give you some advice.
Well, I don't want to interrupt, and I want to hear what you're going to say, but I also want to tie in the old time pro wrestlers that led to this. And you would know these names, especially the guys that are fans of pro wrestling. Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson directly were involved.
You took my thunder. I was going to mention Carl Gotch. I was going to mention Carl Gotch. So I am a big fan, but Amir, I'm going to give you some life advice right now.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some advice. Listen, Amir, you're no one to trifle with me. 6'4".
Yeah.
You're carved out of stone, man. You look great. You're young. You're a great athlete. I mean, you're very intimidating when you walk into a room. You bump into a guy like Pat and you're not looking, he goes, hey, watch where you're going. Let me give you some advice. It might save you someday. When your eyebrows are knitted and your shoulders are up because somebody just said, hey, where the hell are you going? When you turn and look at that person and they have ears like that, you lower your shoulders and go, I'm sorry, sir.
Of
You should have
course.
watched where I was going.
Of course.
Because that's the first sign of somebody that knows how to stick your head right up your ass.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, I wouldn't dare. Like I said, I can't do what these guys do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
So-
the thing
so
is,
let-
Amir, you could do it. You absolutely could do it. 100% you could.
I
Just
could
have to
do.
do the training. That's it. You've already got the athletic ability. You've got, yeah, we'll teach you how to do it and we'll turn you loose on a bunch of people.
There you go. Turn me
We
loose.
ain't-
Create a monster. There you go.
There you
So,
Well,
so
so our training arm is scientific wrestling. You just get
Right.
over to scientificwrestling.com, and we just like Frank was talking about, he was just out in Hawaii, out at our scientific wrestling affiliate in Hawaii. We've had Pat out to our scientific wrestling affiliate gym in Orlando. We opened it up, and Matt was mentioning Blake Troop. Blake Troop came and trained with Pat down in Orlando because he's getting bookings down in South Florida. So we are truly, really trying to do this holistically.
Mhm.
Meaning, if you need to train, we will train you. We will put, like, we just did this big event in Vegas.
Okay.
It was fantastic. We had Frank was out on the mats blowing people's minds. You have to understand, Frank did this as a personal favor. He's like, dude, I have not coached in 14 years.
Yeah.
And he fucking got, part of my language, but it's so mind blowing. He got on the mat, and like, if you follow the trends in grappling, like leg locks are the new thing. Everybody's all into it. Frank was so far ahead of the game. All like the nerds, they're all into leg locks now. Frank was showing them technology. They were still like 5 years from discovering.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I got a good segue on that one. We talk about Hulk Hogan and Bischoff is how we opened up the show, right?
Yeah.
Well, who is a great amateur wrestler? Dan Henderson. And when he took Frank Shamrock on in like the mid 90s in the Contender series, which was cage grappling, it didn't take Frank long at all to submit him. And Frank was way ahead of the game with the leg locks. I'm sorry, my dogs are going a little crazy because of coming from Pancras. And I'll throw it to Jake because Jake had mentioned Carl Gotch. Let him kind of finish his thought there with how where a lot of that came from in the world of submission wrestling.
Okay, Jake.
Yeah, so Carl was a friend of mine. If you go to carlgotch.com, I was very fortunate. He was quite reclusive and somewhat curmudgeonly if he didn't like you. And I was very lucky to get like hours and hours of mentoring conversations that he and I had. It's at carlgotch.com. I put it up as a memorial. He passed in 2007. But prior to him passing, I had this vision of like, dude, we need to bring back Catch as Catch Can. You heard Pat talking about Catch as Catch Can and Frank talking about the carnies and stuff. Dude, like, this Catch as Catch Can sport is amazing. And I actually was very fortunate. Carl Gotch is the true founding father of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
King of Connecticut mentioned this promotion in Japan called Shuto. That was started by a guy named Sayama. Sayama is also known as Tiger Mask. Tiger Mask got the idea from Carl Gotch.
yeah.
Frank cut his teeth with the promotion that started MMA in the modern era, Pancras, which had its first show like a month or so before UFC. And again, that was Minoru Suzuki, pro wrestler, and Funaki what's his name, Frank? Masahitsu? Masakatsu Funaki. And both of them were acolytes of Carl Gotch coming from the Fujiwara Gumi.
Okay.
Now, I was like blessed. I'm like, my God, how am I in the middle of all this crazy shit? This is crazy. But I was like, I saw it. I saw the vision. I was like, Carl, help me work out this rule set. And in 2007, we started holding the very first legitimate Catch as Catch Can or professional wrestling tournament in 100 years since what was known as the Alhambra tournaments in, I think it was 1909. So it was like 98 years prior. There hadn't been like real competitive professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So he was instrumental in it again. So, if there's like a Mount Rushmore of MMA, of pro wrestling, and of shoot it's Carl Gotch is going to be on all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mitsugi Maeda, who trained the Gracies, competed in that Alhambra tournament in 1909. So, like I say, going back to it, roots of the same tree.
Yeah. Now you mentioned there about training because I want to make sure we get that over. So if somebody is watching this, and they want to come and train with you, so Jake, where are the locations? How can they get in contact with you?
The easiest thing is just go to Scientific Wrestling. We're on all the socials. Type in Scientific Wrestling. Go to scientificwrestling.com. You could get in touch with me, and I'll send Pat out to you. I'll send Frank out to you. We got a couple other really amazing human beings. We worked with Billy Robinson exclusively for the last 7 years of his life. I was basically his apprentice for 7 years. Mind blowing. Also, the King of Pinners. Wade Chalice, Guinness record holder for the most wins and pins in all of wrestling, NCAA pinning record, which will probably never be broken, 106 career pins. And those 106, he wanted to add 10 more, but they wouldn't let him. So we've done our best, as you could see with these amazing superhumans on this call, to bring truly the best. Yeah. And this is what we're trying to do and I cannot thank both of you guys for having all of us on enough, because, we don't have the Fertitas. We don't have McMahon behind us. We just have the sum of all of our efforts and our passion and our united belief in this as the future, as a hybrid that brings everybody together. And it does it in a way that promotes health and positivity and fun and gives athletes a venue that they can have longevity in.
Yeah.
And what we really want people to check out is shootprowrestling.com, because on that website, you can see our library of matches. And to reiterate what we said earlier, we've done matches in the cage at MMA shows, in the ring. We've done tag team shoots and our on the mat tournaments. We have Jenny Santana, who's a world jiu-jitsu champion and daughter of WWE Hall of Famer Tito Santana, hosting a women's tournament coming up in Vegas. So Shoot Pro Wrestling, Hogan Bischoff, we're way ahead of you, brother.
Yeah, well,
I'm very close to Tito, as Amir saw.
Yes.
But let me go over. Let me give you a hypothetical that's actually a real deal. So Richard Holiday, it was the first student out of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. He came in 2014, and he worked on himself hard and in a gimmick and everything, and he came up a lot of ideas. So he came up with, when you're standing when you're in the presence of Richard Holiday, you're breathing rarefied air. So one night on AEW, a superstar said, when you're in my presence, you're breathing rarefied air. Well, of course, I got the phone call. And I promptly called AEW, speaking to Tony Khan's attorney, and I said, listen, I thought I'd give a courtesy call before a cease and desist from my office. I go, I really can't do that. And there was a deal, they were going to cut a deal for him to actually purchase to use it. But Richard Holiday's question to me was, I didn't patent it. I didn't register it. And I said, that's not the law. Whoever used it first. So you know what?
Common law trademark. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Whoever used it first. So you guys never forget that. Whoever used it first. All right. Number one. Number two, let's talk about the wrestling. Roma produces the matches, the storylines. Basically, when you go see a Paradise Alley show, you're going to a WWE show from 1988. Everybody loves that. That being said, the product sucked and it's stale. And there's too much entertainment. When I do podcasts like this, I broke into the wrestling business. I didn't break into the entertainment business. When I wanted to break into wrestling, they tried to discourage me by putting me in with Harry Fuji, talk about shooting.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, boy. Talk about almost breaking a leg and an arm. And then I started shooting with Dr. D, David Schultz, and we know all about that. So it was wrestling. I broke into the wrestling business. The wrestling business doesn't exist anymore today. It's just the entertainment business. And I think what you guys are bringing is something fresh, something that people have never seen before. And if they did, they seen it in a limited basis. I think if you get a huge amount of exposure with this, it's going to bury a lot of things. And because if Amir, you got to think about this.
Mm.
If you couple these things with big egos, big personalities, they're still going to get their entertainment.
Yeah,
If these guys are going to cut their promos, they're
yeah.
still going to get entertainment. But when they enter that ring,
Mhm.
they're going to get wrestling.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
going to get wrestling.
yeah.
So the fans are still going to get entertained.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think the idea is a tremendous idea to bring something back that has been missing
Yeah.
for the past 25 years. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like that joke of a South Park episode where they're talking. The whole deal is just them talking on the microphone, and the guy looks at his friend and goes, "This is the best pro wrestling I've ever seen." Well, nobody ever locked up. They're all just talking. You know
Well,
what I mean? So
well, it is.
it's like when I was wrestling, you got a full hour of wrestling. You don't get a wrestling match, 20 minutes of BS, and then another wrestling match and 15 minutes of BS. You know what I mean? So this is something that's really going to catch a lot of people. And you know what? You don't know what you're going to see. You could. I saw a guy at a deli yesterday. He must have been 6'11". I said, if I had your height, I would have been a millionaire.
Mm.
And you don't know if you're going to see a guy like that against the guy that's 5'6", and the guy that's 5'6" makes him tap out. How entertaining is that?
Yeah.
You don't think people would be glued to something like that, David and Goliath
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff?
Oh
It's
yeah.
really this thing is really going to be good. It's really going to be hot, and I think it's the way of the future.
I think
Awesome.
you brought up some valid points there, and I think throw to our viewers. I know a lot of our viewers are fans of the golden era of pro wrestling, which is arguably the greatest from the
Well, that
'80s to
keeps
the
me alive, Amir.
yeah,
That
yeah,
keeps them paying for my
And,
autograph at the
yeah.
convention.
It
and
is. It
guys,
is.
and the name. I just want to say the name of Mario and Paul's Academy speaks volumes. Paradise Alley.
We
Okay,
got the thumbs up for that. We got
we
the
talked
thumbs up.
about
So
we talked about
yeah,
the carnies, right?
yeah,
Anybody who hasn't seen it, anybody who's not an older gray-haired gentleman like myself, Paradise Alley was a movie
that's right.
with Sylvester Stallone, and it was Armand DeSantis' acting debut. And the movie was set in a bar, Paradise Alley, and it was the Carney wrestling challenges. That's how Kid Salami got going in that movie,
Right.
was because he had to eventually face Frankie the Thumper, that was played by Terry Funk. But how he got started was the Carney challenge, which we talked about. Again, roots of the same tree, the history of pro wrestling. What an awesome name for your promotion and academy.
I appreciate that. We tagged on at the time Twitter Sylvester Stallone because, of course, with my background, I'm like, Roma, we're gonna get a cease and desist. This might not be cool. So he goes, have one of the kids, because we're not savvy with this stuff, tag Stallone on Twitter. So they tagged Stallone on Twitter, and Stallone went, "You guys took a page out of my book. The best of luck to you." And I went, okay, all right, we're good. So yeah, I appreciate that. I really I like the I like the name of it myself. And you know what, I had that Frank Shamrock moment when I looked up at that board and I saw Funk v Mancini. I said, oh my god, I'm working with Terry Funk. And all I thought of at the time in '85 was Paradise Alley. That's all I thought
Oh,
of. I'm
that's
like,
awesome.
oh my
That's
God, I'm
awesome, man.
working with Terry Funk. So,
What a great movie. What an awesome
oh
movie.
yeah, tremendous movie.
That's
So I think I can't wait to see this. I'm gonna look it up myself. But I'll tell you what, I'd be fuming if somebody tried to get their hands on this and say it was their idea. I would and I have nothing to do with it, and I'd be pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
part of what we're doing, and the only thing you can do is to be first to market, like you said, and
Yeah.
common law trademark is there. And so this is why, I mean, I have been shouting from the rooftop since 2007. There's no, if anybody says that, I'm just going to be able to jump on their heat and their vibe, because I'll just be like, oh, well, here's timestamps, brother.
Yeah. Well, this
Good
is
for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Good for
this is
you.
further
Good
this
for
is
you.
further evidence of that. I want to concur with Mario as we bring this one to a close here. I think it's much needed, something like this. I think pro wrestling itself has gotten so far away from pro wrestling and into a weird gymnastics realm. I would just call it gymnastics now. Everyone's flipping around the ring. It doesn't make sense. There's no psychology to anything. But bringing back some of those traditional routes of pro wrestling here in a shoot form, I think, and again, being able to protect people now, so they're not gonna get injured and beaten and battered. That's important. That struck a chord with me, Pat. I love what you guys are doing for health for these guys. I think, yeah, it's gonna be something to watch, and
Yeah. And
I'm gonna put the links in the description of this video to all the Shoot Pro and Scientific Wrestling.
And
I'm going to put all the links down there, and I encourage our viewers to go over and check some of this action out.
and, I,
Be
and
pleasantly surprised.
And Amir, speaking of the action, I just want to say, because you guys have all those pro wrestling fans, it's my pleasure to call the action with the living legend, WWE Hall of Famer Larry Zbyszko. So
That's
fans,
right.
when they go to shootprowrestling.com, they start watching our matches, you're going to hear Larry on commentary.
Yeah, very true. A throwback to WCW Monday Nitro. So if you loved Larry back then, you'll love him again right here. And also, you mentioned as well, Gerald Briscoe is involved in a capacity with you guys, correct?
Yes, Jerry Briscoe. Jake and I were on his podcast with JBL. I've known Jerry for a long time from when I was coaching amateur wrestling. He was recruiting one of my guys, and he's a great guy. And yeah, he's been with us on this journey from the beginning.
Okay, wonderful. So there's a lot of pro wrestling inspiration and involvement here. So, but I
Yeah,
want
and one thing, and I'm so sorry to
to.
interrupt, Amir, but I'd like to turn this over to Pat for just 1 second, because we are. I mean, look, we've got literally the best in the business, like the cream of the crop from clearly the guys on this call. But then I'm talking Carl Gotch, Billy Robinson. Like, dude, this is just sick. We
yeah.
have the best team. We are looking for more members. Pat, maybe as president, you can address that briefly.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, look, we have certainly from our side, the executive knowledge, the vertical integration. Frank and I have plenty of experience, not only as athletes, coaches, but also as broadcasters. We know the television side very well. And so really what it comes down to is the right component financially to come into this group and be able to lift this up to where it deserves to be. And we know we can create an amazing product that's going to have millions of viewers every night. And that's really all it takes, because we really have covered all the bases. None of us are billionaires or multimillionaires except Frank. I I'll be wealthy off of fixing people's soil. It won't be from, but nonetheless, that's really what this comes down to. Is we want to bring this to the masses, and we know we can bring a great product, and that's our calling. Is we are ready. We are ready to go. We're ready to go. We're at the starting line, and we're ready to kick some ass.
Yeah, like you said it best. You've got a tremendous team already in place with the knowledge and the expertise required to make it happen. This is going to go out to the public. Let's just hope that Vince McMahon doesn't call you guys, because Jake, I don't know what you're going to do if Vince calls you and says, "Hey, I want in on this."
Vince,
We'll take his money.
Vince doesn't get to sit in the production truck and scream at our broadcasters, though.
There
As
you
long
go.
as he just gives the money, that's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Not anymore.
Mario, any closing statements for us before we head out this week?
Well, I just think it's gonna be really, really good. I don't want Amir to get angry at me or anybody else, but I thought I'd try to give you guys a lift, and we have been on TikTok live the entire time. So I hope that helps you guys. And again, being in the wrestling business and associated with 41 years, I know I was supposed to sit here with a poker face on And typically, somebody who's broken into the wrestling business in 1984 really shouldn't mark out to anybody, but I just couldn't help it, man. I couldn't help it, man. I just kept looking at Frank and remembering his fights and everything. And listen, I won't go into it, but I mean, some people's faces looked like ground beef, man. I mean, I enjoyed watching he and his brother um compete. But listen, if there's anything I can ever do to help you, I got my ass kicked by Fuji and Schultz shooting, but I did wrestle in high school. I know exactly what you're doing, and you know, I'm very proud and because Amir, there's an old saying: you can't beat a wrestler. Wrestler's always going to beat you.
Yeah.
Always going to be. So you know what? I'm excited to watch it, and I think it's going to do. I think it's going to do really well. And it was incredible having you guys on. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was a pleasure
Thank
to
you,
have
guys.
you gone. Of course, Frank, we need to get you back when Paul's here because, well, that's a whole other story, but we
Now,
need you.
Frank, because Frank, we're at wrestling, and it's like Roma gets mad, he laughs,
Hmm.
but fans will walk by and you'll hear him whisper and go, if it's a convention where they don't have money to make the poster behind you to tell people who you are, and you're sitting there and your 8x10s are on there and they can't quite see him unless they walk up and they whisper and they go, "That's Ken Shamrock," and Roma will go, "I'm not Ken Shamrock. I'm
Well, you
not
guys,
Ken Shamrock."
well,
Oh,
Mario,
hey, look,
well,
there's Ken
Mario,
Shamrock. Roman's like, I'm not Ken Shamrock.
you know what's funny? Before he was Ken Shamrock in pro wrestling, before he was ever in UFC, he was Vince Torelli in pro
Oh,
wrestling. Did you guys know that or no?
Stallion,
Oh,
stallion.
Yeah.
wow.
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 That's
We're going to
cool.
have to do something on that one. But I
Yeah,
tell
Oh,
you
yeah,
what,
we're going to have to.
gentlemen, Jake, I know you've got a busy schedule ahead of you. We all do. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on. Matthew, I'll be back in contact with you to arrange for you guys to come back on separately and whatnot. Pat, I'd like for you to come back on because we cover men's health too. So I
Beautiful.
specifically would like to do a special on
Yeah,
men's health.
yeah, and I really didn't get a chance to tap into Pat as much as I wanted to, too, because he's got a lot going on, man,
Yeah.
and he's got a lot of knowledge, and I'd like to learn from a guy like that.
Yeah, so I
Appreciate
think
it,
we'll
guys.
do that for you. But viewers, we encourage you again, Powerplex that subscribe button. We thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you again right here on Power and Glory next time. Until then,
Thank you,
everybody,
guys.
God bless everybody,
God bless, guys.
and God bless our
Thank
viewers
you.
out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.